Good midday to you. This is the midday moment for July the 6th, 2026 here on Following Him, the Disciple Life. We talk about all kinds of things on here. So just we take a moment to do that in the midday or approximately midday, depends what time zone you're in, I suppose, and how quickly I get on here. I want to talk just a moment about something we don't want to keep it before us at all times in the sense that we obsess about it, that we go about in a spirit of fear. But with the beginning of the trial of Tyler Robinson, who is the alleged shooter for Charlie Kirk, and want to make sure to say that for legal reasons, but the evidence against him looks pretty strong. And now I've not sat there for hours and hours going over every detail, but from everything I can see, it does look like he is the one that did this. And he is a leftist. And from all I know about the case, it looks very much like he unalived Charlie Kirk because of Charlie Kirk's views on LGBTQ issues. Like that, this is a real thing that people will take somebody's life over, and we need to be aware. Recently, this came to my mind because I saw this one thing that did come up, and if I see more details about it, I might deal with it in another video. But there's a former Democratic Socialist campaign volunteer, Teja de la Nuel. I am not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. And so that's, you can look at Tehadelaneuelle, Delanuel, maybe. Sometimes you think you got it figured out, and then it's just some off the wall pronunciation. But the main thing about this is not so much about the exotic name, but is about the person's state of mind. This was someone that would consider himself trans, and I say himself because from what I can see, that this is a biological male, and basically asserting that they need to make the moderate position. And basically, he has this video where he has this message in the background saying, and we're going to make this YouTube and TikTok friendly, to unalive your local Republicans. That was his message. Anybody that's moderate, that's his message. That is not mine at all. We disavow that going either direction. But he is basically saying that we're going to make this the moderate position, that is, unaliving people from that party. That's good. They want to make that the moderate position for the state of Wisconsin. Now, the Democratic Socialist that he was volunteering with in Wisconsin apparently has disavowed this to their credit, and that is not to comment on their democratic socialism, which I do think that there's all sorts of problems with, but at least they don't support that. So to be fair to that campaign, that's not from the campaign, that's from the campaign volunteer. But the fact that somebody's willing to put this in a public forum and that they feel that this is something that is okay to do, it raises all sorts of questions about the climate we're in right now. That you have some that think you can get away with this, with making threats, calls for violence. There does come a point, while yes, we have free speech and it must be protected, that's different than calling for violence and instigating violence. And when you have people that are in such a state of mind, they're going to call for this sort of thing publicly. Be aware. Be aware. Jesus said in Matthew 10:16 to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. So now we don't want to take the position that some have taken, fight fire with fire, or more along the lines of fight evil with evil. Because there are some in the extreme right that would take a similar position or pretty close to it. And you did have some that after what happened to Charlie Kirk happened, that said, you're not going to like what comes next. Well, Charlie Kirk would have a problem with that. But point that out. Charlie Kirk would have a problem with that. So, that should not be our responses at all. Harmless as doves. And that's not to say we can't defend ourselves, but we're not going to answer evil with evil. But we do need to be wise. And there is a place, and this is a whole other discussion, for reasonable self-defense. So we do live in a time where we need to take heed. We need to be aware of what's out there, and we need to be honest with the threat that is coming from some on the left. This is a very real threat with what happened to Charlie Kirk, because from everything I can see, despite how Candace Owens has tried to sabotage it, and despite how she has really tried her best to have Charlie Kirk's killer go free. I think he's his killer, alleged killer, I guess, but I think he is. Despite what she's done, he will most likely be found guilty, and it looks very much like he is. This is an example of left-wing violence, and we have people threatening more. So let's be wary. Let's pray for our nation. Let's use some wisdom. You have a good rest of the day, Lord willing. Talk at you tomorrow, hopefully a little bit closer to midday.